Hi everyone, and welcome to my video explaining the recipe for this week, which is an apple and blackberry crumble. To start with, you need to preheat your oven to 180 degrees. So I've already done that. My oven is on and ready to go. If you have a gas oven, it's gas mark 6. Now, the next step on the recipe says place the flour, porridge oats and butter into a large mixing bowl. It then tells you to rub the butter into the flour and oats until it looks like breadcrumbs. Now, I've already done this for you, but if you would like any support on how to do the process of rubbing in, there is a basic skills video which should pop up on your screen just now on how to rub in. So you can click on that if you want a little bit of a reminder about how to rub in. So this contains our plain flour, 50 grams, our 25 grams of oats and 25 grams of either butter or margarine. Remember, if you've got margarine is a slightly healthier option. It tends to have more unsaturated fats rather than saturated fats. So if you've got margarine, I would recommend using that, but butter is also fine. The oats in this recipe are great. They add a little bit of a crunch and texture to the recipe, but they also add a lot of dietary fibre. Fibre is great for us because it helps to fill us up, keep us fuller for longer, so we're less likely to snack between meals and overeat. It also is really good for the digestive system. It helps to keep everything moving through our digestive system and prevents conditions like constipation. In your theory work last week, you were looking at the elderly, and fibre is a very, very important nutrient for the elderly because in the elderly population, their digestive system starts to slow down. So it's really important that they have enough fibre in their diet to make sure that they can keep their digestive system moving. So that's your first part of the crumble. Once you've rubbed together your butter, flour and oats, you're then going to add in some demerara sugar. Now, I did put a note in the recipe, if you don't have demerara sugar, I know it can be tricky to get some baking ingredients at the moment, just use any type of sugar that you've got. But the demerara sugar is lovely because it gives it a nice crunch. So I'm going to just pour that in. And I'm just going to mix it in with my hands. You could also mix this in with a table knife, but as my hands are clean and I've just been rubbing in, I'll just use my hands to gently mix through the demerara sugar into the crumble. And that is it in terms of the crumble. So that is your crumble mixture made. So I'm just going to pop that out the way just now. The next step is your apple. And I've got my apple here. Again, I have prepared the apple in advance, I have cored it and sliced it, and again I've made a basic skills video on how to prepare an apple. So if you'd like any further input or support on how to prepare the apple, if you click on the basic skills video which should be on your screen just now. You may notice that I've left the skin on the apple. My main reason for doing that, again, is the skin of fruit and vegetables is the bit that contains most of the fibre. So we want to keep as much of that fibre, as much of the vitamin C and the nutrients as possible in this recipe. So the apple is already prepared. I also have here some blackberries. It's just a small amount of blackberries. I've chosen just to use frozen blackberries. You can use fresh, you can use frozen, you can use tinned. It's entirely up to you and it won't make a huge difference to the recipe. You can also use any other type of fruit. So if you don't have apples and blackberries, you can use any fruit that you have in the house or in the cupboards. So it can be fresh fruit, it can be tinned fruit, it can be frozen fruit. You may even add some dried fruit in. So use what you've got, waste not, want not, make whatever kind of crumble you like. But I'm giving you the example of apple and blackberry. So the first step that I need to do now is it says place half of the sliced apple and half of the blackberries into an oven-proof dish. So that's what I'm going to do first. I wasn't quite sure, to be honest, in my kitchen what oven-proof dish to use because I wasn't sure that I had one of a suitable size, but I'm just going to go with this little cake tin here. So I'm just going to spread half of my apple out on this individual cake tin, like so, just roughly spread it out. And then I'm going to put in half the raspberries as well. So you can even count them if you like for half your raspberries. Blackberries, you know what I mean. And then the recipe says, cover the fruit with the caster sugar. So I've got a little bit of caster sugar here. And again, remember I said in the recipe, if you don't have caster sugar, if it's maybe granulated sugar that you've got, use that. It's absolutely fine. And it's not a huge amount of sugar that we're using here. So I've got a spoon and I'm just going to nicely sprinkle that all over the fruit. What's going to happen in the oven is that sugar will start to caramelise in the heat of the oven, and that will give you a lovely caramelly taste to your fruit in the crumble. So that's going on top of half of the fruit, and then on top of that we're going to add the rest of the fruit. So you're layering your fruit up. Again, you don't need to be too concerned with the presentation here because you're not really going to see this bit. Just lay them out and then add in the rest of your blackberries. And try and distribute your blackberries reasonably evenly so that you don't get all of the blackberries in one portion and somebody's left with none. So that is my fruit ready to go. I'm just going to very quickly rinse my hands and then I'm going to show you the crumble. So next up, I am going to cover the fruit with my crumble topping mix. So again, I've just got a spoon here. I've already mixed the sugar through, so I'm just going to sprinkle the crumble topping over the fruit. And again, you don't need to be too exact about this. Just pop it in. Now the benefit in this recipe of cooking the fruit, so using apple for example that's been cooked, is that it makes it easier. Remember, we're talking about the elderly here. It makes it easier for them to chew the food. It's not too kind of hard or difficult to eat. So that's part of the reason that we've chosen this recipe, is it's quite a nutritious recipe that can be used particularly for elderly people who maybe struggle with chewing harder foods. So I've got that all in, and I'm just going to push it down slightly, try and cover up the majority of the fruit. This tin is probably a little bit too big for this particular recipe, but unfortunately I didn't have anything smaller, so we're just going to have to make do and mend with what we've got. Try and squish those blackberries down a wee bit so you can cover them as much as possible with the crumble, but don't worry too much if they're not completely covered. You'll just get a lovely kind of purple bubbly layer on the top, which will look quite nice. So that's our crumble ready to go. I've just lightly pressed it down on top of the fruit, and then it's going to go in the oven for about 25 minutes until it is golden brown. So remember and use your oven gloves, and I'll get that in the oven just now.